in order to stay organized with thoughts, what can one do? Is it write it down? Is it like a structured framework or an exercise that you might have in mind for one to be able to assess that?
Yeah, so you kind of brought it up. Journaling is a great way to get our everything that's going up on here. It's usually like twisted and there's so much going on. When you journal it and you actively are writing it down, it like it's it kind of the thread gets kind of detangled, right? And so we can better see on paper what's going on.
If you want to be successful. Welcome to VIPAs, the game plan call.
Very good. So, first of all, thank you very much for joining us today. Um, I think, we had a brief discussion about, kind of topic of discussion for today. But just before we get started here, um, it's come to our attention, through a series of discussions that we've had within folks within our organization that, this time of the year around, and just, if you're in the industry, if you're new to the industry or you've been in the industry for a while, there is a side to this that we tend to sometimes overlook and sometimes even negate, which is the mental side of this business, right? And running a business as a whole, right? So I'm
Mhm.
speaking to everybody here within this organization as of right now, right? Because when you're running a business, when you have to manage your family, your life with the family, expenses are going up, right? Inflation is an all-time high. It's very tough to sort of keep your mental fortitude in check, right? And then ensure that everything is aligned across the board, right? So we've had a few conversations with a few folks, like, we understand that we take that into account. And that's why, here at VIPA, we want to make sure that we are doing our best in ensuring that you guys have effective strategies in place to be able to sort of maneuver through that, through the clouds per se, within this business, or just in any business, to be honest. So, with that being said, we have been blessed to have the opportunity to speak to Mrs. Loera. She is the youngest therapist supervisor for Utah Department of Corrections. She's also a leader within her industry, in a sense where she's trained new clinicians and interns and things of that regard. So she's very well versed in what we are going to be discussing today. Topic of discussion is going to be about the importance of mental health in the sales world, and then practical application of how to go about that. Yes?
Yes.
Good. Okay. All right, Ms. Lara. So first things first, did I miss anything? Is it, anything else you want to add?
No, I just wanted to say thank you for having me on this call. I appreciate you letting me be a part of this.
Of course, the pleasure is ours. We'd be thanking you, much more here in a moment. But so getting into the nitty-gritty here, right? I think we had briefly had a discussion about, this as a whole. Um, So like, and I know in your field, it's relative to like what we're kind of going through right now, or some folks in our organization are going through right now. But what would you say are like some, just to get kicked off, like what would you say are some effective daily like mental health practices that can be done um in under 10 minutes for someone in a high like stress sales role?
That's a great question. So, I wanted to talk a little bit about the window of tolerance. So, it's a mental health concept in terms of window of tolerance is how effective we're doing in terms of managing our emotions, thinking clearly, having everything under control. It's like the optimal zone that we want to be in. In this zone, we're like doing great, work is going good, personal life is going good. We're able to manage things effectively and just feel good about it. When we're outside of our window of tolerance, so if we're up here, which is a hyper arousal state, our body kicks into fight or flight mode.
Hmm.
Um, in this mode, we tend to be super anxious, overwhelmed, irritated, agitated. We're kind of like all over the place. We can't manage things very well. And this can come from like any any inconvenience or any stress that life throws your way. Your body thinks you're in a danger situation, and so it kicks on that fight or flight.
Hmm.
Underneath that, if you're outside of your window of tolerance, below that, it's called a hypoarousal state. So
Mm.
what that is we are in the freeze state. Um, this can look like being numb to things, not being able to be present, kind of
Mm.
zoning out, desensitizing. I have a trouble with that word, but just kind of not being there, going through the motions, right? There are different techniques for different things that are happening in our body. So first we have to be able to identify, hey, what's going on? If I'm getting really overwhelmed and getting agitated, I probably am in that hyper arousal state. And so some techniques for that, let me pull out my little notes.
Mm.
So in that state, our central nervous system is hyper aroused, right? So it's kind of freaking out. There's something going on. And so the only thing that our central nervous system does that is automatic, that we have the ability to control, is our breathing. And this is
Mhm.
going to sound very basic, but it's a huge research thing that helps when anybody is in this state. So our central nervous regulates our heart rate, our blood pressure, our hormone secretion, our breathing. The only thing out of those things that are autonomic, that our body just does for us, is breathing is the thing that we can control, and therefore that controls the other things as well. When I
Mm.
start breathing more calmly and more slowly and more regulated, my heart rate will also go down. My blood pressure will also go down. It'll kick a signal to my brain to tell me, hey, I'm actually good. I'm not in
Mm.
danger. We're good. And it allows me to go back into that window of tolerance.
Mm.
So breathing exercises are a huge, huge, huge deal.
Mm.
To the point where, like, if I purposefully like breathe really, really loud and really fast, I can pass out. I can make myself pass out, right? And so it's a huge thing it's so amazing that we have the ability to control that.
Yes.
Another thing is doing things like grounding when you're in that moment of hyperarousal. Any grounding exercise, the point of it is just to bring you back to the present moment. Okay. There's tons and tons of different like little activities that you can Google or have or do through YouTube. But pretty much grounding is just like a really fast one is like feeling where you're at. So everybody right now in their chairs, like, do you feel how your clothes feel on you? Can you feel your feet on the floor? Can you
Mm.
feel what your back feels like against your chair? Like, is it hard? Is it soft? Can you touch something around you, the table, the pen? What does the air smell like? So kind of just bringing you back to the present moment is another amazing thing for when we're in that hyper arousal state. Um, Now
So,
for the other portion,
okay.
say that one more time.
Breathing, grounding, these are key exercises here.
For the hyperarousal.
Okay.
And so another one is really, really intense exercise. So
Okay.
when we're really agitated or emotional or we're having trouble like regulating things, 3 minutes of intense cardio, jumping jacks, push-ups, running in place or running a lap, just 3 minutes will
Mhm.
kick that signal to your brain and put you back in your optimal zone. Just 3 minutes, like that's all you
Mhm.
need. And you're able to like better see the situation and not act from an emotional place.
Right, right. And then, it also would contribute to the blood pressure, like you had explained, and similar to like breathing and things of that regard.
Yeah,
I mean, it's
more exactly.
That's huge. This is a big thing, with us being in like a virtual environment. You're sitting at your desk all day, you're not really moving around. These are all contributing factors, right? To, us not, sort of prioritizing. It's very easy to negate these things, right? To not
Mhm.
prioritize the health. Not prioritize exercise, not prioritize, this side of things. And what happens is, and correct me if I'm wrong, it becomes like a buildup, right? You try to push things off for so long, it just becomes like little things that are pushed off for long periods of time tend to become much larger as time progresses, right? And then when it hits you, it hits you and hits you hard, right?
Mhm.
So you touched on some very good points here. So there's two types. So correct me if I'm wrong. So it's so what did you refer to it as? Something of tolerance.
Your window of tolerance.
Window of tolerance. Window of tolerance. And there's two levels of the window of tolerance, correct? And what were the two levels again?
So we can be within our window of tolerance, and when we get out, that's like a no good. So outside above it is hyper arousal state, and then we got our hypo arousal state.
Okay. Hyper and hypoarousal. Okay.
Mhm.
Now, with these exercises, would they contribute, these exercises contribute to adhering to ensure that, we get back into our window of tolerance, which is definitely huge. Now, breathing exercises. Are you familiar with the Wim Hof method? Are you familiar with that?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. I'm glad to know. Because that's something that's like, it's trending and everyone's doing this right now. But if you guys are you get obviously go on YouTube and you watch the Wim Hof breathing exercises. Those are like the best things to do like ever. If you want to, before you get on the Zoom, take a cold shower, you do the breathing. I'm telling you, your brain needs oxygen. Your brain needs it. And another big thing is like, mouth taping is huge too right now. I don't know if you're aware of that, but mouth taping, nose taping, because what it does is that it brings sort of oxygen to the brain to lower the blood pressure, right? It helps with sleep and things of that regard. But these are key things that we need to know in order for us to sort of like ensure that that pileup doesn't happen, right? That mental pileup. Um, but no, this is great. So you're recommending that obviously breathing is there, grounding is there. Anything else in terms of like actionable steps that one can take to ensure that they are within that window of tolerance?
So the things that I'm talking right now are very just like immediate, right? And like
Yes.
in the moment,
Yes.
hey, this is what we're gonna do. They're not
Yes.
they're not long-term fixes. I can
Mhm.
talk a little bit more about like what
Please.
if we actually expand our window of
Yes.
tolerance.
Yes,
Um,
please. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about like all the intricacies of like, how to keep stay within the window of tolerance when it comes to with family. What kind of conversations need to be had there? Let's do that. That'd be good.
okay. Um, Real quick with the free state though, just fast things that you're able to do, just in case that works better than the long-term plan. Or if you just need something like faster. So with the hypoarousal state, when you're in that freeze or in that you're just numb, you're not being present, you're not being present with yourself or with your kids or your partner or whoever your loved ones are. Um, a good thing to do with being in the freeze state to get out of it is what is it? So it's called you shake it out. So a
Mm,
quick technique like a 30-second, 15-second, and it's probably better when you're like alone and not in a room full of people, right? You just literally like get up and you start shaking everything like your face or your
mm,
arms, your legs, like it kind of gets your body back into like its actual optimal zone.
mhm.
When you're in freeze, everything is just numb, right? You're just kind of going through the motions. And so shaking it out is like a very quick, easy thing you can do in the moment. Um, Something else is temperature changes. So running your hands under super cold water or throwing really cold water in your face, that'll take
Dunking
you
your head in
like
ice water. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, or
Yes.
ice baths, right? If
Yes.
I mean if
Yes.
you have longer time, those are actually amazing. But if not, just run your hands under cold water for 10, 30 seconds, throw some on your face. That'll kick off the free state that you're currently in.
Okay.
Let's see what else.
Okay. So hypo is when you become numb. Hyper is when, do you mind? I know you kind of explained it, but hyper would mean what are the signs of someone who's like hyper
They're really
um,
agitated. They like
agitation?
pacing back
The
and
difference between
forth.
agitation and then feeling numb. Wow, those are profound differences. Okay, continue. Sorry, I'm just trying
No,
to.
no, that's an excellent point. Some people are like, well, I handled it great, right? I didn't yell at my boss, or I didn't yell at the client, or I just took it, and so I'm doing great. I'm operating in my window of tolerance because I didn't freak out. However, we tend to forget a lot of us, especially when we're working with people. we tend to be in the free state where we're great at work, and we're doing all this work, we're getting the numbers in, blah blah blah, and then we go home and we like shut off.
Yeah.
We can't be there. We're so stressed and tired and drained because we were actually operating outside of our window of tolerance. We weren't really doing it. We weren't really doing a great job, but we thought we did because we handled what we had to handle with our clients or with our or whoever was around us, right? So that's an important distinction. You have to be able to recognize, am I actually in my optimal zone, or am I in a free state? Because when I go home, I can't be there for the people who actually care about me and love me. I'm irritated quicker. I'm more like, I kind of brush them off faster. Um, just things that don't make you a present person in somebody's life, right? So, and that's super common, super
Yeah.
common.
Yes. Okay. Okay. Wow. Okay. So now just sort of conceptualizing that in our day to day, like our schedule. So what do you think about this? They use these, we use key exercises like what you've suggested, beginning of the day before we get on into the call, and then right before we check off. That way we can get back into our code switch into like family mode. We do it one more time at the end of the day, right?
Nice.
Okay, so that would be good. That would be good actually, because I think, going straight from, work to the family, or, you just like you said, you're not going to be present. You have to be able to make that code switch, because now your kids need you. Now your wife or your husband might need you, right? Talking about work, 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 or you just had a bad day when it came to, maybe you didn't close as many sales as you wanted to, or clients were disrespectful or whatever it may have been. Being able to take that time to, like you said, ground oneself, to remember like why they're doing this. What's the reason this is, they're doing this for their families. Like, we're all in this business to provide for our families, right? We have to remember that, right? And it's very, easy to be able to let that slip, right? When we don't take the proper actionable protocols to ensure that we are taking care of ourselves. So no, this is amazing stuff, Arlene. So in your experience, because typically with us, like, we've had folks come to us and explain certain things to us, but
Mhm.
what are some physical signs that you would say of like someone burning out? And how do you think? And obviously, and the next question would be like, how can they intervene early before it gets worse? Obviously, the exercise would be helpful. So I think you kind of answered that. But like,
Yeah.
what would you say are some signs of someone who is going to burn out? Because it kind of is going to that'll give them the understanding of like how to know oneself. Keep in mind, ladies and gentlemen, like this, it takes a supreme level of accountability to be able to understand your emotions, understand, how you're thinking, how you're feeling, and things of that regard. But, you know, uh, well, that's the question.
Okay. When mental health symptoms are starting to creep in, depressive symptoms, anxiety symptoms, those two, I was doing a little bit of research on, brokers and people in the sales world. They are at an increased risk for depressive symptoms and anxious system due to the high stress of your guys' job. Let me get the numbers right. There was a survey in 2021, 68% of, of those individuals working in sales brokers reported experiencing.
Wow. Wow. Say that
Mhm.
one more time. You said, you mind
So
repeating that?
68% of individuals that were surveyed reported experiencing mental health symptoms in the last 12 months. This was back in
Wow.
2021. They did the
Okay.
same study in 2020, which was at 57%. So it went up 10%. And I am more than positive it has gone up even more now. Um, that's an incredible number. Compared to other professions, those who deal with people every day, who work with people every day, who are listening to other people's issues, problems, trying to help them out, they are at an increased risk for those mental health symptoms, for them to be presented with those mental health symptoms. And not only that, but 1 in 7, let me get this right, 1 in 7 brokers not only had depressive symptoms or like anxious symptoms, but they were also like fully diagnosed with a major depressive disorder. Okay. So to be fully diagnosed, it means there's a criteria in our DSM that you have to hit. If you have 5 out of the 9 symptoms, 5 out of the 9 symptoms in the DSM, you qualify for a major depressive disorder diagnosis. So just real quick, the depressive episode has to be present for a minimum of 2 weeks, and you must have 1 and 2 be there, which number 1 is depressed mood, feeling empty, hopeless, sad. You have to have number 2, loss of interest or pleasure in activities that you used to enjoy. And this could be like family time as well, or just any activity that you used to like take pleasure in and looked forward to. And now it's kind of just like, I don't really care. So those 2 have to be there. Some of the other ones can look like if you suddenly start losing a lot of weight or gaining a lot of weight. Also, if you start sleeping too much or too little. So you have to know what your baseline is, right, for these to make sense first. So you have to know where your baseline is. And if you start going significantly above that or below that, that is a very strong signal for a depressive disorder or depressive symptoms, depending on how much criteria you meet. Another one is slower thought processes and physical movements, or increased physical and mental activity, and other people are noticing it. So you like your whole body, you just start kind of like walking slower, you're thinking slower, you're kind of like your voice even gets slower, or the opposite, like just more agitated. That is a marked sign of depression as well. Number 6 is fatigue or loss of energy, just feeling kind of drained and tired all day, every day. 7, feelings of worthlessness or excessive guilt. And then 8, hard time concentrating on things, on any task. And then 9, recurrent suicidal ideation. So this isn't just like passive suicidal ideation. Thoughts of suicide are actually very normal amongst most humans. Like, what would it look like if I wasn't here? What if I just were to die tomorrow? Passive suicide ideation is a little normal. However, when it's recurrent and it's not stopping, and then you're getting to the point where it's maybe more excessive, you start thinking about how you would do it. You start obtaining the things that you would use to do it. You start really wanting to, the intent behind it. Then we're in a huge, huge danger zone. And at that point, I would ask for anybody to reach out to help. 988 is the new mental health crisis line. Instead of calling 911 for mental health crisis, you call 988, and those are trained professionals to help in mental health crises. If they need to send out the police, they will. However, you can call them 24/7 and they can support you in any way, shape, or form. So anyway, those are the 9 criteria for a full-blown depressive symptoms. 1 in 7 brokers has a full-blown major depressive disorder.
Okay. These are key data pieces that you've touched on here. So I think from what I'm getting at with like just sort of inferring what you're explaining here, super profound that majority of these metrics are most of, from what you said, is people who are in the sales industry as a whole.
Right.
So with that being said, you did touch on like the overall in terms of like baseline metrics. So you talked about sleep. So too much sleep is an indicator. Too less sleep is also an indicator. Too much exercise is an indicator. Less exercise is an indicator. So what kind of baseline, correct me if I'm wrong. I don't know.
Sorry, not exercise. Like psychomotor agitation is what I was referring to. Like when you're being too slow in your psychomotor, they call that psychomotor retardation. And then there's psychomotor agitation, which it's not exercise. That's not in the criteria.
Okay. I got you. My apologies. Maybe I inferred that incorrectly. Okay, so now let's talk about baseline metrics then. What would you suggest in terms of like average, day-to-day like schedule? How much should one be sleeping? How much should one be exercising? What kind of baseline metrics should one meet in order for them to have an overall healthy ecosystem so that way they can for optimal performance?
Okay, perfect. So you just brought me back to how to expand our window of tolerance more long term. which is where we want to be in our optimal zone, right? So for sleep specifically, research has found that we need 3 to 4 REM cycles to
Mm.
be at our most optimal form. In our REM sleep, this is where we like rejuvenate. Like this is where everything is like getting back in order from the day, and then we're able to attack the new day. So 3 to 4 REM sleeps. It doesn't go by hours. Before they used to say 8 to 10 hours. It the hours doesn't matter as long as you're getting quality sleep. So if you're getting 3 to 4 REM cycles, rapid eye movement, then that's your optimal place to be. The best is for you to have a sleep routine. So go to sleep around the same time, wake up around the same time, because then your body's like, or your brain's like, oh, it's sleep time. It starts unwinding by itself. It starts secreting hormones to tell you to like relax and unwind. Um, I also just learned this, which I thought was really cool. So
Mm.
um, sunlight will do this with like our what is it called? Like our sleep cycle. So in the morning, the best time to get sunlight, because we do need sunlight, that's another part of the expanding window of tolerance. Going outside in the morning when the rays are more like that yellow orangey color, like seeing that with our eyes and being outside secretes hormones in our brain that says, hey, it's time to get up for the day, it's time to start the day, let's give you everything you need to be energized, alert, and good to go. And then at night or in the evening time when the sky looks more like the blue hues, purple hues, um, that kind of thing, that also secretes hormones in your brain for the um, unwinding part. So like, hey, let's start, taking things slow. Let's start relaxing. It starts getting you a little bit more tired. Those are the optimal places when you should be going outside and like looking at the sky and feeling the air and all of that.
Mhm.
Because it does help with the sleep portion of it as well.
Mhm. Okay. Okay. So now all of these sort of objectives here, they do contribute to, adhering to one, like if they're in like a bad mental state, correct? Obviously. So is there anything else that like what kind of actionable steps that one can take, maybe it's a conversation that needs to be had with themselves, with someone they need to consult with externally of the household, or even within the household, right? Just to avoid that bad mental state. Like, what kind of are there any other actionable steps, conversations that can be had to avoid that? Because, like just to give you a little bit of insight on our day to day, like we are on, like I explained to you this before we got on this call, is like most of the time we're on the phones all day. We're talking to folks all day. We're in the we're in the people business, right?
Yeah.
Um, dealing with, life and death, which is a very serious thing. Um, and sometimes it can take a toll on folks. So, and sometimes, some of the clients that we speak to have a very sharp tongue in the way that they're able to convey their message, right? And if you hear that time and time again throughout the day, it can, tend to sort of, break you down a little bit.
Mhm.
So, anything else in terms of like, making sure that if you're in a bad mental state, like what can we do to ensure that that doesn't happen?
So you brought up a good point in terms of like we need to identify where that stress is coming from. Is it because I keep getting mean things from my clients? Is it because I'm dealing with rejection? Is it because I have a lack of connection? I'm like just on my computer all day. I'm not getting up. There's a lack of movement. I don't have support. Is it because feelings of depression, anxiety? Is it because of financial issues? Is it because you're struggling with your family or your partners? There's some issues going on there. Like it's important for you because everyone's going to look different, right? Some of us are doing really really great in some categories and not so great in other areas of our life. And so first you got to identify like what is it that's making me go outside of my window of tolerance, or bringing the biggest stressors to my life. What part of my job, because in sales you will be stressed, right?
Mm.
There's like no, sorry, like it's part of the job, unfortunately. So it's just figuring out like what is bringing you the most stress and targeting that. And then once you know that, it's creating actionable steps of like how I'm gonna mitigate that, and having a support person where I'm letting them know, hey, this is what I'm planning for the week. This is my goal for this week. This is my goal for this day. This is my goal for the month in terms of targeting uh, family issues, in terms of targeting dealing with rejection, finances, lack of connection, feeling alone, sleeping too much, having these things out of whack in my brain, right? It's figuring out what they are, and now when I know what they are, I can do something about it.
Mhm. Okay. So like how it's now it's easy, right? When there's a storm that needs to be withered. It's easy to, pick and like just say everything is just not going the way that you want it to go, right? So in order to stay organized with thoughts, what can one do? Is it write it down? Is it like a structured framework or an exercise that you might have in mind for one to be able to assess that
For thoughts.
for their mental state? Yes, to identify like what like is the root cause of the issue that they are dealing with at hand.
Yeah, so you kind of brought it up. Journaling is a great way to get our everything that's going up on here. It's usually like twisted and there's so much going on. When you journal it and you actively are writing it down, it like it's it kind of the thread gets kind of detangled, right? And so we can better see on paper what's going on. And we might have thought something else was the issue, but then we start reading our journal over when we are at a better state, like we're not super stressed and freaking out. We start reading it over and we start picking out themes. Oh, like I keep bringing this up. Oh, it sounds like this was like a really bad thing for me. Oh, I keep bringing this other thing up, and it's the same issue. So with journaling, you can be able to identify it, yes, at a much like better rate or
Okay.
efficient rate.
Yes, no doubt. I can imagine that to be helpful because like, like I said, I mean, you're all like I said, when you're going through it, you're going through it, right? Like it's easy to just, say that, just lash out at your spouse because things aren't going good within sales, but like being able to identify that is huge. And honestly, okay, if it's writing it down, then there's now if like let's say okay, they're writing down, they're just journaling. They're journaling about how their day went or like what's currently troubling them, and then what kind of like so in terms of like, actionable steps, and now they need to have like proper communication with
Mhm.
what a conversation either with themselves or a conversation with the party that is triggering them to feel this way, correct?
Yes, both. Yes.
Okay.
Um, so the first thing I would say for you guys that would be best is number one, like take care of you, right? We've
Hmm.
been talking a lot about the window of tolerance. Make sure that you are good. Make sure that you are taken care of. Make sure that you're doing the things that are expanding your window of tolerance, like the adequate sleep, sunlight, micronutrients. So fruits and veggies, mostly when they're juiced, is the best like form to get them. Macronutrients, 30 minutes of exercise. There's another one I can't recall. Um, so so make sure you're taking care of you, because when you show up in the best version for yourself, you're able to show up in the best version for your family. Um, the next thing that goes with that is if you're noticing that you're in the hyperarousal or the hypoarousal state, or it looks different when you come home and you need some sort of like um, distinction from work life and home life, have your own little routine of whatever it is that you need, um, and communicate that with your partner or with your kids and let them know. Like, so for me, when I I'm doing therapy every day, I'm working with other clinicians every day, I'm dealing with other people's issues on a daily basis, and I don't get to really like even focus on me at all, right?
Yes,
And
yes.
and so I go home and I'm drained, and I realize I'm operating in that hypoarousal state. Like I was like, I'm killing it at work. Like I'm getting kudos from my boss's boss, right? Like I'm just going at it and going at it. And then I go home to my partner and I'm just agitated. I'm like, don't talk to me. I'm like, I'm so drained. I'm so tired. And and it was like an ongoing thing. And obviously there's tension that happens there. Then you don't really want to go home. And then there's just so much of consequences that happen thereafter. Figure out what's going to be helpful for you. So for me, I need 30 minutes of like alone time and quiet time and unwinding time as soon as I walk through my door, take off my work clothes, go heat up, go make some food, sit and watch like a 30-minute show. Like I just need some like quiet and peace. And I don't want to talk about my day. I don't want to do all these things. And that works for me. Right.
Mhm.
However, my partner, if he's home, he wants to talk and he wants to like have dinner together and he wants to see what's going on. And but for me, I was getting even more frustrated that he wanted to do that. And so it was not only me figuring out what I need, but communicating that with, hey, is it okay if I take 30 minutes to do this? And then after, I'm going to also do whatever it is that you need or you want, because it's not only about me, it's also about my partner and their needs.
There
And
you
so
go.
it really comes down to like compromising, but you can't do that without having the conversation. Like I was doing it by myself already, right? I was taking my alone time, but he was not in the know of it. And so for him, it was just like I was pushing him off. I was not being present. I was being rude in his mindset, right? And so it's talking to your family about what it is that you need. And then you also show up for them in the ways that they need you.
Yeah, absolutely. And then having a spouse who can also like adhere to that as well. Like having a supportive spouse who can like take that time to understand that like, okay, like she's not trying to take time away from me necessarily. She's trying to take care of herself so that way she can show up better for
Right.
me, right? That can get kind of, sticky if it's not communicated in the right way, I can imagine, right?
Yeah. So having those hard conversations are going to be huge, 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 huge. Um, and remember, it's not like I just said, when you bring up your needs, it's not just about you. You also have to be there and be present to hear out their needs and come
Mhm.
up with a compromise that's going to help both of you. Um, One thing that's really helpful for like couples or for people in relationships is having a very structured, dedicated time where it's your quality time with that person. We all like put things in our calendar, right? We all put important meetings or client calls on our calendars, and we show up to those when they are scheduled. Um, we try not to reschedule or just forget about them. So when we should have that same attitude and mindset when it comes to our home life. If we plan a date or an event or something with our family, with our spouse, with our kids, um, you you put that on your calendar. You make that a priority. That is their quality. That is their structured quality dedicated time to them. And if they see you taking it as important as your client calls, like that's going to make a huge, huge, huge difference, right? In the way they interact with you, because you are showing up for them. You are taking that time out of your day and saying, yep, every Friday at 5 o'clock, this is what we do together, or whatever your schedule looks like, right? But you have that dedicated time with your spouse. It could be with your spouse first and then spouse and kids. Like your spouse does need their quality time with you.
Absolutely. Then their needs must be adhered to as well to ensure the ecosystem within the household is, standing strong. And what happens in the mind, the body will follow. That's
Mm-hmm.
that's number one. It's such an interesting thing because like while when we were speaking prior to this, I was thinking like after I spoke to you, I'm like, think about, therapists, folks that are in your industry. It's like you're dealing with people's problems all day. I mean, honestly, we're pretty much kind of therapists in a way too, because we have to talk to clients,
Mm-hmm.
about, what they have going on with their day and, the lost ones within their family. Those are serious conversations to be
Yeah.
had. Like our level of care, respect, and understanding are such hard thing. You can't teach that to somebody. You either have it or you don't have it, right? But once you have it, now it's just a matter of being able to sort of organize that kind of information that you have coming in, so that way it doesn't. But at the same, making sure that it doesn't sort of throw you off at the same time, right? But what I'm trying to say is like being a therapist, you're taking care of everyone, and then you're not taking like who's taking care of you? Who's taking care of Arlene? Right? And
Right.
what, who's taking care of Arlene? Arlene comes home. Do you have kids by chance?
I don't know.
Okay. You have a spouse though.
Hmm.
Now, and you don't have to answer this if you don't want to, but like, what kind of effective strategies have you used in your day-to-day life? I know you talked about one,
Mhm.
um, but like, what kind of effective strategies have you used, and like, what is your spouse doing that is adhering to your creeds and your needs, I should say?
Um, so
You
I've talked
guys.
to him about like the window of tolerance as well.
Mhm.
Just very briefly, not like as in depth as here. Um, but the when we're frustrated with each other, and this happens often, right? Um, and I don't want to talk in the immediate because I don't say very nice things if I haven't had like
Yeah.
time to process. And so I personally need some time to be able to like disconnect and then come back.
Right.
Um, Usually the funny thing is that when somebody feels this way, their partner tends to be the opposite. They need to talk about things in the now, and if not, they
Mhm.
feel alone and abandoned and all these other ththings, right? So also figuring out, hey, what do you need? What do I need? And then once again, coming to a compromise. I have to come back to that conversation 20 minutes, 30 minutes after. Um, I forgot his name. He is like the expert in relationships. Oh, I forgot his name. He has a book, for agreements. Mm,
Expert
forgot.
relation. Yeah.
Gottman. It's Gottman. So Gottman. He has the Gottman Institute. He's like the leading expert in all things like relationships, marriage, divorce, and he says 20 minutes is like the optimal time for you to be able to like calm down your brain and then think logically. When we're emotional, we're only thinking with our emotional brain, and our logical brain is shut off. And so
Mhm.
we got to bring that back down for us to be in a logical state and have a logical conversation. Um, which is why we have different modalities. Cognitive behavioral therapy, it's all about the mind, it's all about your thoughts and your behaviors. However, some people don't do super well with this because they're kind of emotionally just frazzled all over the place, and you cannot think logically or do CBT when you are in that state. And so the other one is DBT modality, dialectical behavioral therapy. DBT is all about emotion regulation. So once you have emotionally regulated, you can now think logically. So you can do CBT if you want, but the emotional regulation piece is going to be the most important to that individual who struggles with that more so than over here, right? Um, I think I lost my train of thought.
No, no, it's okay. I mean, I think you answered the question like, in a beautiful way as
Okay.
well. Like, I mean, but this is the thing, right? It goes back down to like, 'cause especially in this day and age, like people are just trying to move so fast, right? Like everyone just wants a reaction, right? Like it's tough to be able to have a spouse too who like understands like I can't give you an answer right now because if I give you an answer right now, you're gonna see the worst side of me. So like let me take 30 minutes, 20 minutes to go and like really process this because I genuinely care about you and I don't want to say something that is going to tarnish what we've
Right.
been able to create. So out of in that so it's it's a meeting of minds, right? Both parties have to align in that regard to ensure that both folks are thriving. It's a beautiful thing. But I'm glad that at least you yourself are practicing these things as well because it's very easy to overlook, right? When you're in your business specifically, your industry specifically, people are constantly coming to you with their problems. And do you ever have people who ask you about yourself? Do you ever have people who like take the time out of the day to like how's Arlene doing? Do they do that? I don't know.
Clients know, right? Because that's
You
not
do
what
that,
therapy is, right? It's not about me, it's about them.
right? Right. Of
Um,
course.
Coworkers, sure.
Of course. Of course.
However, because I supervise my clinicians, it's
Right.
usually their stuff. So
Right. Right.
so it's a little bit more limited, especially when you're in a leadership role. Like
Right. Right.
it gets a little bit more
No
dicey.
doubt. No doubt. No doubt. No, I can imagine. I can imagine. Okay. So, let's see. So, like, what would you say, like, the difference between healthy ambition and then toxic overworking? And then how can someone sort of self-monitor that boundary? What would you say?
Ooh, that's an excellent question.
Yeah.
Um, that's hard because some people are just like innately they have a very strong work ethic, regardless of where they are in life or in what position they are in. Um, those with that work ethic tend to pick more demanding jobs. However, if they were still to work in like, I don't know, a, a, a restaurant or a clothing store, those qualities of them will still be like they're still going to put in the hours, they're still going to be putting more hours than the other people. Like it's going to show, right? Like some people just have that innate like work ethic and ambition and go go go, and so it's hard for them to slow back down and relax, because sometimes that's where like their value comes from, their achievements comes from that. um and that's a much longer conversation in terms of like, you have internal value. What is that internal value versus external accomplishments? Um, for something more complex, I would probably suggest like individual therapy, kind of figuring that out with a professional clinician, on your own type of thing. Um, what else?
Yeah.
It's just hard because they will show up in that space in whatever they're doing. Possibly, let's see, with what you guys do, it's hard because you're taking calls all the time. It could be a dinner, it could be at an activity, it could be wherever. So you're really just like go, go, go. It's hard to shut your brain off from work mode because you still might be called out or be in work mode later on in the day. And so it becomes a little bit more intertwined with things. Hmm.
But I mean, all the strategies that you touched on, though, they all like adhere to it at the same time. Like if they do, if you are having proper communication with your spouse, then
Right,
taking that call at dinner might not be a problem, right? Because they understand, right? Or if they've already done the kind of exercises which you've touched on earlier, with understanding how they're feeling, then, and even in the best case scenario, they use those same exercises with their spouse, even
right.
if their spouse isn't in the sales industry,
Yeah.
right? So, that's huge. But I think we're pretty much pretty short for time. But I just want to say this, Arlene. I think this was amazing. Honestly, this is gonna go down in the book. So I greatly appreciate you for your time today. Seriously, I think everyone else does here as well. If it's okay with you, do you have a few minutes for us to ask a couple questions?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Okay, that'd be amazing. So we'll go ahead and conclude with that. If everyone could unmute and say thank you to Mrs. Arlene, that would be greatly appreciated. And then we're going to sort of take some questions here momentarily. Is there anything else you wanted to touch on, though, Arlene?
Um, yes, I have a couple books,
Yes,
resources.
yes,
So,
yes, yes, please, please, yes, that'd be good.
so for those who are more of in a leadership position, oh my God, I actually have it right here. This book is great. It helps you like see people as people and therefore have better relationships with your coworkers, those people that you're mentoring, or your family. And so this one has been really good. It's called Leadership and Self-Deception by the Arbinger Institute. Okay, so this is going to be for like our leaders. Um, Another book for more like trauma related is called The Body Keeps the Score. It's by Bessel van der Kolk, Kolk. And he's an
Body
ex
keeps.
The Body Keeps the Score. So it really just talks about like the how trauma and how mental health and these things, your body remembers and will show it through your body. And it's just really cool. It's fascinating, the stuff that he talks about. If you want to learn more about trauma and then how that affects your body or how that may affect your partner or somebody else that that has experienced trauma. Um, to learn more about the window of tolerance, so Dr. Dan Siegel, he's the one who developed it, who coined the concept. He's a clinical professor of psychiatry. And he is an expert in the field of interpersonal neurobiology. There are tons of books that he has created that touch more on the window of tolerance. And so if you're more interested in that, you can check that out as well. Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. I'm glad that you kind of touched on that. That was the last question I was going to ask you, is like, what kind of books, do we think that we could read? I think and the books is like, the foundational piece, right? I think the best action step that anyone can take before sort of even doing any of these exercises would be to educate, right? Like, read the books first, because it's probably going to give you more in-depth explanation of the intricacies of, what exactly is going on here. So there's that. But I do appreciate it. So.